Hey there, welcome back. This is another episode of Jolly SEO's TLDR, and today we are pretty excited to be back together in person, and we're going to talk today about something a lot of business owners navigate, whether you're a digital agency, I feel, or even like a D2C brand, right, is going all in on one product, in our case, productized service, or being more of a
Call from
custom or
Nils,
perhaps
one of the guys from Yellow
encompassing
Claw,
a service
and
provider or product provider, right? Covering the whole niche. the
That's
whole breadth.
right. And
yeah.
I would maybe
How does
say
that happen?
almost like horizontal versus vertical
Oh, and
integration in a sense, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's tempting always to want to do
have
all
the
the things. I
patience
think there are valid reasons
to
for it,
study
but
another.
Morgan's going to kind of set the scene. I'll try to not interrupt like always, and then we'll
Name
kind
is
of
guys,
dive into what the context was for us and how that informed our current philosophy on it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's always pros and cons with either approach, right? Whether you're taking like a niche or a productized approach or a holistic kind of service-based approach. And in terms of SEO in particular, there's some pretty clear ones that we've noticed. So I think in terms of link building, like here's just an example, right? Link building, it's something that agencies have often expressed as very difficult to do in-house. It's one of the things that's actually outsourced the most when we're talking like holistic SEO agencies.
Yeah, here I'm going to interrupt, even though I said I wouldn't. We're coming right off of another core update. This one pretty massive called Spam Brain, right?
That's right.
And a lot of agencies now are being outed for having always outsourced their link building. And this is something when you're in a particular space, regardless of your niche, you kind of know, we know, something we pride ourselves on. We do the work in-house, we do it the hard way, we earn it, it's slow and steady, and people want faster results, it's a pain point, blah, 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 blah. But it's always tempting to be like, damn, like it could be done easier, it could be done differently than what we do.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's a good point too in favor of a productized approach, right? It allows you to pivot as needed. It allows you to really focus on the quality. Whereas if you're outsourcing something and say your easy vendor is now impacted by these algorithm updates, you're stuck kind of scratching your head like, okay, what do we do now, right? You have to pick someone else out. Whereas that may affect your overall offering significantly, whereas focusing on a product, you can kind of stay on top of things, focus on the quality aspect and be prepared for that kind of thing. So that gives the productized services some advantage. There's always going to be the market, right? So there's an easy market to plug into in terms of clients that just need to fulfill, like specifically say their link building needs. And another thing too, agencies aside, one thing I've noticed, I don't know if you feel this way too, really large clients, enterprise level clients, that actually prefer to do things, piece by piece in an in-house way rather than, say, hiring an agency to fulfill their SEO needs. You will have that place that you can plug into for, say, their link building. They like to really pick out their specific vendors the way they want to do things. I think gives you a potential entry point there in a sales or lead gen.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
sense.
offering holistic SEO management, right, and they have an SEO director, what's that person doing talking to you? Because, I mean, there may be that much room in the budget, they need a second set of eyes, et cetera, but they may also view you as a competitor of sorts.
Yeah, absolutely. Exactly. And that's another good thing, right? Like if you focus on a specific product, you really do alleviate a lot of those fears of being that competitor, right?
But what about the pain point? Morgan does a lot of the sales for Jolly SEO. What about the pain point? You're in the sales call and they're like, I don't really want that service. I like you, like I like the ethical and integrity, like I can see it. That's why I even reached out to you. I don't bother with other, but I don't want that service. I want this. And then you're like, shit, I don't do that.
Yeah, and that's That's tricky, right? Well, it was for me, at least in the beginning, because I was always tempted to twist our services to meet the perceived needs, right? And that's a mistake that you can easily fall into. You got to stick to what you know you can fulfill and do right.
Yeah, there's that fine line. Like they say, position your solution to meet their needs, but it's not to the extent that you're misrepresenting what you're even capable of.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that does bring bring us into some of the pros of the holistic services, right? And the cons of the product. So, when you're speaking to people, I'll say it this way. When you have a product that you really lean into, it's great when you talk to a lead or something like that where they really know what they want. What they want is link building, done deal. It's easy. But when they don't really know how to, I think this is particularly an issue with startups, like really new startups maybe that don't have a ton of funding. They don't really know where to start with their SEO. They need somebody to really flesh out an entire strategy, and in which case we're just not oftentimes a good fit.
We're a premium product that's very niche.
Exactly. And, we'll be honest with those people. Like, hey, what you really need to do is, get a content pipeline filled out, get your technical SEO covered, that kind of thing. Link building's there, but maybe this isn't what you need to lean into right at this particular moment.
So it's been painful over the years for us in terms of, in a previous episode, we talked about trying to do all the things and then fortunately found a productized service. We really made that thing into, we feel, a productized service that others emulated. But at the same time, there was that huge con of like, we only do this one thing, which is, at the time we called it Done For You Haro, but like journalist outreach using all the reactive PR platforms, right? And
That's right.
we just didn't feel appropriate for people, and it's always tempting to try new things.
Exactly. And so the last thing I did want to point out, when you lean into one specific product very heavily, you have less control over the client in the sense that we're really not there to monitor. We will give them advice sometimes. We're not the one controlling their content pipeline. If they're doing other link building, who knows? So while obviously people who come to us see massive traffic increases, right, Greg?
I mean, but it is to be genuinely pumping our own selves here. Like, it's quite a special feeling to deliver a productized service. Again, a lot of other factors, right? A lot of other things clients are doing. To be part of their journey in your own specific lane and see them have a great exit or see them double, triple their traffic, which from private conversations that has real revenue impacts, things like that.
That's
but
right.
you were saying, but
no, and that's a good point. That's how I say it when I share like case studies, things like that. We're part of a successful SEO strategy. But what I was getting at earlier is we're not in control over their SEO. So they might go out and just say, oh, cool, I found, this huge list of sites that I can buy backlinks on for $10 each. And they might just start building them. They get dinged for it. And, at the end of the day, if we didn't know they're doing it, it's a problem, right? So
yeah, it's a real. We always think about it correlation, not causation, but we're intertwined there, and so we feel like, oh, was that us? Like, were we part of that mix? And fortunately, I can't think of a case where a client has paused and a detox and hasn't come back, at least to notify, but in many cases re-sign with us and say, kept 100% of your work. It was great. But it's really tricky because it almost goes back to our initial pain points as an agency where we couldn't control the total outcome. And that's what you want to deliver in a service provider environment. Maybe if I can hijack, is this an appropriate place to kind of... The benefits of Productized as the service provider were amazing at first. I came from being an editor and a writer. We did a content agency. If there's any writers or former writers in the audience, I mean, you know the sinking feeling you get when a client says, "This is great, but I have a few revision requests," and it was just, oh no. So we pivoted to an outreach tactic in our case, where it stripped away almost 100% of our former client pain points, and became something, at least on the implementation, that we really did control for once.
That's right.
That was
Y-
an amazing feeling for us.
Because a prerequisite was that the the client has to put trust in you, right? And we're going to give you a great product, but you got to trust us to do these outreach and on help a reporter out, that kind of thing. We're not the ones writing the final article. Links are going to be great, and then as clients started getting great links, they would spread the word, and that made that bar a lot easier to cross, right? But it ended up being a great thing for us in terms of management, like you were saying.
And also, I mean, trust is huge. I think one way we established that was the portfolio, right? Over time, our portfolio grew in terms of real results produced for clients. And I'm not just talking case studies, I'm talking about individual product. In our case, great placements on the top tier media publications, not paid for, but earned the hard way with outreach. And that made, again, you do a lot of the sales today, but we used to share it more, and I still do some. It made sales a breeze, but going back to just 5 minutes ago in this combo, only for the people, in my words, maybe not yours, who knew the ROI on what they were buying. It's like they had to have trust in us, but they had to have trust in what the product would do for them, because they already calculated their whole strategy and what their budget would be for us and what they would see as a return. And that made sales really challenging for people who had no idea what they were doing and were looking for great advice, which we're happy to give, but felt guilty selling our productized service.
That's right, and I think it kind of comes back to that lack of control over their SEO strategy. Like link building it's an essential part of an SEO strategy, but you also want to know that they're doing the other things right. And if they don't understand the immediate ROI on the links, it often means that they don't have their strategy fleshed out, right?
Yeah, so I really want to put this image as the thumbnail for this podcast. But basically, you have this great description of our JO service. Did I repeat it to you? Do you know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, the Matterhorn, right?
The Matterhorn, that is our, if you don't know what the Matterhorn is, it's a famous mountain, a giant peak, and it's a literal, you've seen the image now, so it's a little sad graph of, we had this peak of this one productized service. But another con with productized services, in my opinion, is you achieve product market fit, you nail the operation, and in our case, you try to scale. We started to encounter several problems with scaling, from learning about cash flow to managing teams to understanding how to keep the quality consistent so the referral channel didn't die down. And then our one and only productized service entered decline. And that was really scary for us. And I felt we pigeonholed ourselves or painted ourselves into a corner kind of thing. And so I feel like today, years after that event I'm describing, maybe 3 years ago, is we're like a hybrid now. We don't do all the things, but we have multiple productized services.
Yeah, it's interesting because while we do have three distinct, well, I'll say this, we have three different offerings, distinct offerings, and they all fall under link building. So it's almost like three different strategies of what is essentially the same product to fulfill different needs. But like Greg was saying, it's not really doing a bunch of completely different things. And it does seem to work for us, right? Because, link building, there's different kinds of clients with different kinds of needs and different kinds of budgets, right? So while it's all link building, we do have something for most everyone in that space now, whether they want, internal links or lower price links or PR focus links, etc. Right?
Product page links. We're always trying to crack that nut, and we feel like we're ready to release something public in the next quarter on how we can do that for people. It's just been a fascinating journey because I honestly feel if we didn't productize, we wouldn't have made it. I do think in the end, the whole niche down advice was totally appropriate for at least our situation where we needed to develop expertise in one core skill and get known for that. We made a name for ourselves. We became like the done for you Haro outfit. And then it was like a double-edged sword where at a certain point we were hurting ourselves by just staying in one focus.
Yeah, absolutely. And, just to riff on that a little bit, staying too strictly within one niche or focus, to me, it leaves you more vulnerable to external changes. So just to use the example of the done for you journalist outreach or HARO service, while we do use a handful of platforms now, there was a period when we were really just almost exclusively using Help a Reporter Out. And
our anxiety was through the roof.
exactly. All it would have taken was the newsletter to be done. Or, even things like the newsletter didn't get sent for a couple days in a row or something. It's Haro ending. Oh my God, the writers are freaking out.
Or it just didn't deliver to some inboxes, right?
Yeah, right. It could just be like a nothing thing, but the team is freaking out, or everyone's.
We were all in on that thing.
Yeah.
And it's a trickle down effect because our freelance team, they were not aware sometimes of different interruptions in that delivery, whether it be a holiday in a culture they're not part of or things like that.
That's right.
And so that kind of paranoia was it was under the surface at all times, just because of the lack of diversity, the lack of stability. That's right.
That's right.
If you were to vote overall, or maybe that's too simplistic, is it, because the way I'm seeing it is like it has a place and time, or would you, if you could, just like stick hardcore, hardline, productized for, let's say, the next, because at this point it's not ridiculous to think about 5 years ahead. I mean, what would you pick?
And you're asking if would it, like the way I see it, would we stick in a productized service or start to branch out?
Yeah.
It's a good question, and I think obviously there's other factors as external factors, but I do think that it's a natural progression to start branching out at some point because you're going to reach kind of the term return on investment. I think at some point we can continue to develop more and more link building strategies, this and that, but I don't think we're going to get the same return on the investment as if we try to crack into something new. And the niching down, I think, is an excellent strategy, especially in the beginning when you need something to really distinguish yourself and distinguish your brand. I think it's hard to compete with the larger holistic agencies when you're a little guy, but you can get known for providing a very good product and you can make good money. So to me, it's a sensible progression to starting to branch out once you get to a certain point. And so to answer your question, in 5 years, I would think we would be branching out by then.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody has their own path. It's hard to predict the future. We're all reacting to external conditions as well. As much as we like to not be reactionary, we do have to live in the real world here. So hope you all enjoyed exploring productized versus holistic / custom agency models. And I know I have a lot to learn. So if you have any thoughts, reach out to us and share your opinion as well.
Yeah, like Greg said, I think this was a fun one to talk about. Which groups we're in. Feel free to give us a shout out, whether you're in Signals Lab, TTT, or Facebook group, any of that stuff, or just a good old email. We'd be happy to talk to anyone, even if you're not in the SEO space, even if you just want to, just riff on this topic for any kind of thing. But yeah, thanks for listening. And
That was fun. That's a wrap.